Sange Chedan Tsoge Cholam Chanju Pardo Danye Kyabso Chen Daye Chinzo Yebe Sena Jala Benjere Sange Jubora Sho Sange Chedan Tsoge Cholam Chanju Pardo Danye Kyabso Chen Daye Chinzo Yebe Sena Jala Benjere Sange Jubora Sho Sange Chedan Tsoge Cholam Chanjo bardo dani gyabzo chi dagi jinzo yibe sanam gi trala benjire sange drobara sho za shi böge choje medo dama jera linshi nide gemba sange shindo mide mewa yi chobe namda shin jebara la mangoro la na mena la gamni da ya. Oh yeah. Yeah, please sit down. Oh yeah. So Tashidelek to everyone. So once again, we continue with our the Dharma class. The Dharma class is on the practicing the gradual progress of spiritual practices on the book known as The Words of My Perfect Master by H.E.Tongkhor Rinpoche. And we will catch up from where we left off last time. So I think for the last 2.5 months, we haven't seen each other. And so I have been touring North America for the Medicine Buddha tour of Ceremony Monastery. So we had covered a lot of places, and we were able to benefit a lot of sentient beings. And so this is just a small update. Now we will continue with the Dharma teaching, Dharma class, which is, I think the subject is how to follow a spiritual friend. So that is a chapter which we have been following. And within the chapter of how to follow a spiritual friend, there are a couple of subcategories. And right now we are following through the emulating the teacher's realizations and actions. And those of you who have the book, we are in page number 150, 51, that area. So now, before we start, just like usual, please keep your motivation pure. So a pure motivation is the intention or the motivation should be that of to benefit other sentient beings, all the other sentient beings. So that should be our motivation. So of course, as human beings, as a sentient being, as an ordinary being, we have our selfish thoughts, and that is how we run the world. That is how we function in the world. In generally speaking, every inch that we move, and basically from the morning to the evening, we move around because we have that self-cherishing thought, right? Maybe not necessarily a selfish thought, but we have the self-cherishing thought. We do that for ourselves. But when we practice the Dharma, we should make sure that every day for an hour or more, or maybe just for a few minutes, to tune your motivation with that of the Bodhisattva's motivation, which is to become enlightened or become Buddhas for the sake of all sentient beings. So if you have that, so this should be this should be your guiding star. So when you have the proper Bodhisattva's motivation as your guiding star, then no matter how many in your day-to-day life, no matter how much of self-cherishing thoughts that might arise, it will not be able to deter you from the your main goal. So therefore, please set your motivation to that. So the next 1 hour, I will be listening to this Dharma talk for the sake of all the sentient beings. Oh yeah. So now when it comes to Dharma practice, when you listen to Dharma talk, when you listen to a Dharma talk, the intention should not be just to acquire more knowledge, right? So in other fields, in other sciences, whether it's when you are learning a new language, or whether you are learning a new skill, whether you are learning mathematics or science or philosophy, whatever, in generally speaking, you are trying to acquire knowledge. But in the Dharma practice, when you listen to a Dharma talk, it's not about acquiring more knowledge. Of course, you are acquiring more knowledge, but that is not your main goal. So it's not about how many times have you listened to a certain book or a certain text. That's why no matter how many times like our teachers have given this spoken on that topic, we always go there whenever they speak on that topic once again. So it's Dharma classes, Dharma teachings are not something about acquiring more knowledges alone. So basically, so if Dharma teaching is not about acquiring more knowledge, then what is Dharma teaching, right? So Dharma teaching is to basically help you improve improve the mind, improve your sim, the chitta, the tham, right? So basically, Dharma teaching is just like having a breakfast, right? It doesn't matter how many times you have breakfast. You always have to have a breakfast every morning. So you cannot say, I have had breakfast for last 50 years, so I'm not going to have breakfast this morning. So it's like, or breakfast or a meal a day, right? Some people may not take breakfast, but if you are taking lunch or dinner, so it doesn't matter how many times you have taken your breakfast or lunch or dinner, you always take that, right? You may have taken thousands of lunches or breakfasts in your last 50 years or 20 or 30 years, but you still keep taking breakfast every morning, lunch every day, and dinner every evening. And the reason behind that is you want to sustain your body, right? So similarly, in order to sustain your mind, you need to, so the intention when you listen to the Dharma, it should be something like that. You eat because you want to sustain the body. Similarly, you practice, whether you practice in the form of listening, or whether you practice in the form of meditating, or whether you practice in the form of chanting, you practice because you want to sustain your tham, your mind. So we eat food, we eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner to sustain the body. Similarly, we practice in order to sustain the mind. So this should be the motivation. So when you listen to a Dharma talk, it's not about just whiling, it's not just blessing, it's not just wasting your time, it's not just acquiring more knowledge, but this is to sustain your mind. Okay. So the last bit, it's very important. So always keep this in your mind whenever you practice, whenever you are chanting or reading. meditating or listening to a Dharma talk, always always have this attitude, always have this mindset that you are doing that to sustain your mind, yeah, to sustain your consciousness, to sustain your thumb. That's very important. Otherwise, if you think just by doing by if you practice with the intention of if you have the intention, what we call external motivation, right? To think like, okay, if I go to the temple, people will think that I'm a good person. If I give donations, then people will think I'm very generous, or things like that. Or you are doing it for selfish or selfish or self-cherished reasons, then it will not of much benefit. Of course, there will be small benefits, because as long as no matter as long as you practice, there will always be benefit, right? But the benefits will be trivial, very minimum. And the Buddha Dharma can bring you so much benefits. And if you use that for such a small benefits, for such a small gain, such a small benefit, then it's, you are not able to use, you're not able to fully utilize the benefits of the Dharma. So therefore, always keep this in mind, that whenever you are practicing, always think that you are doing this to sustain your mind, right? Or your thumb, basically, your sem, your chitta. So I keep saying this again and again. The English language, in English, the mind consists most likely here, the mind, right? You think with the mind, not feel with the mind. You feel with your heart. But the Tibetan sem, or the Vietnamese thumb, and the Sanskrit chitta has the connotation of both the thinking mind and the feeling heart. So therefore, always, whenever you are practicing, keep thinking that you are doing this to sustain the thumb, the sem, the chitta. Okay. So when you have this, then even if you do a small amount of a so-called small amount of practice, like saying, just chanting one mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, right? If you chant only one Om Mani Padme Hum, but if you do that with the mindset, right, to sustain your sem, your thumb, then this will be of utmost benefit. It will actually help you for the long term. But if you practice without such understanding, then no matter how extraordinary the practice may be, it will not be of much benefit to you. Of course, the practice, whether you are reading something or whether you are engaging in any practices, the practice itself, the textbook itself is really extraordinary. It's really sacred. It's really powerful, but you may not be able to take much benefit out of it. Of course, it may seem fanciful, but then that's about it. If you want to take the most out of your practices, then you should always have this mindset that you are doing this in order to sustain your mind. Yeah. Oh yeah. So now, as I said earlier, we are talking about how to follow a spiritual friend. So basically, a spiritual friend is a term used in the sutras. In the sutra, you don't see very often the term guru, right, or the lama in Tibetan. So you don't see that much, especially in the Indian original Indian text. You will not see much of the word the guru. You will see spiritual friend, or Gewe Shenyin, right? Or in Tibetan, Gewe Shenyin. In Sanskrit, it's Kalan Mitra, basically a spiritual friend. So this is a term that is used to refer to a teacher. So anyway, so we are basically talking about how to follow a spiritual teacher or spiritual friend, a teacher, basically. So unlike your ordinary teacher, so when I say ordinary teacher, I mean all the teachers are very gracious, very kind to have imparted their knowledge to us. But when it comes to the Dharma practice, the Dharma teacher, this is the all the other teachers actually teach you how to function basically in this life. But the Dharma teacher actually tells you not only how to function in this life, but also how to get from this life to the next life, and how to function in the forthcoming lives as well. So therefore, so there's a little bit of a difference there. Of course, all the teachers deserve respect, or all the teachers deserve respect. But when it comes to spiritual teachers, there is so much more to think about. So this is what we are talking about. And so here I would like to refer to the book here. So in page number 151, there's a short citation where it says, "Most fools take his portrait and meditate on that, but do not honor him while he is present in person." And so this is this is something that we should reflect, not just in the spiritual realm, but in our ordinary worldly realm as well, in our day-to-day life. When someone is living among us, we tend to ignore them, or we tend to criticize them. We tend to argue and fight with them. But when someone is not around anymore, and that person has already left, when that person is no longer with you, when that person has passed away, things like that, then we keep saying like, oh, this person so and so is such a great being, such a good person. We are so sorry that he left. So the same thing. This is something we do in our day-to-day life, and we also do that not just in our ordinary life, but also not only in our mundane life, but also in our spiritual life. We tend to do that when the teacher is living and breathing, then we don't pay much attention to the instructions that they give, and then when they pass away, when they are no longer when the teacher is no longer with them, they tend to long for the reincarnation of the teacher, or let's say, keep reminisce about all the good things that teacher did, this and that. So this is a very that is a very mistaken approach. So this is what Pedro Rinpoche is reminding us of, so that when the teacher is living and breathing, we should heed his instructions, and if possible, try to know or learn what his mindset is, what he thinks, not just what the teacher says, but also it's important to learn what the teacher thinks about, so that before the teacher speaks, you can actually kind of predict what the teacher is thinking and do something before the teacher tells you to do that. And that would be of the utmost respect. That would be showing utmost respect to the teacher. So so this is what, so here we are talking about how to follow a spiritual friend or a teacher. So if you want to truly follow a teacher, then it's important to pay heed, pay attention to the teacher when he's living and breathing. And when he gives you a task, you should perform it. And when and not to regret and grieve over when he's when the teacher is gone, right? So basically you have to capture the moment. So as I said, the third line says, they claim to meditate on the natural state, but do not know the teacher's mind. So basically, keeping a big portrait, big picture of the teacher at home, in your altar, but not really following him, does not help anything. And then so it's important to follow the teacher's instructions, right? Especially when they are living and breathing, they are alive, when they're present. And again, and also you have to, if you really follow the teacher, then you will know what his mind is. In our day-to-day life, in our ordinary mundane life, when you love someone, you know how that person functions and thinks, basically. Like a caring mother will always know when when the child is hungry, when to feed him, when like, you know, what the kid loves and doesn't like, um, what my boy or girl, what my children fears, what my children does like or do not like. So basically, a doting mother knows the mind of the kid, right, of the child. So similarly, if you so how to follow a spiritual friend? If you have a real faith, if you have real guru devotion, then just like a doting mother, you should become a doting student and know or learn and know the mind of the teacher as well. So mm, so here it says they claim to meditate on the natural. So the natural state means basically the ultimate truth. So they claim to meditate on the ultimate truth of natural state. So natural state basically means ultimate truth, because nature is what it is, right? Not not concocted, not contrived, uh, not twisted. That is what nature is. So the natural state means what is the truth. The truth is something that is not made up, right? When the truth is never made up. When you make up a story, then it's a fake story, right? When you tell a true story, that is a natural story. So here, when it says they claim to meditate on the natural state, so natural state means the truth, the ultimate truth. So if you claim to meditate on the ultimate truth, then you have to learn how to you have to learn, and you have to know the mind of the teacher as well, because there are many people who, I mean, who have interest in the spiritual realm, and they, say like, oh, there are so many books to read, I can just read the books, I don't need any teacher, things like that. And you can read and learn, read a book on many different skills in the world, in this world, and you don't really need a teacher for that. But in the spiritual realm, if you do not have a teacher, then this will not help you to as I said in the beginning, to sustain your mind, right? To sustain your consciousness, because Dharma teaching, Dharma practice is all about sustaining the mind. So there should be a connection between you and the teacher. The reason is not because the teacher, let's say your teacher is so me as a so for example, myself, right, Tongkhor Rinpoche as a teacher. So I am not important. Me as a teacher, me as an individual, Tongkhor Rinpoche as an individual is not important here. What happens is I as a teacher have the lineage, right? Like I listen. When I say lineage, I'm not talking about the Tongkhor Rinpoche lineage. I'm saying whatever Dharma talk that I'm giving, I have a lineage for that. I have a transmission for that. So I listen to my teacher, who listened to his teacher, who listened to his teacher, and it goes all the way up to the Buddha, the original speaker. So there is that connection. There is that connection there. So when you practice the Dharma, if you practice just by the books alone, if you read a book and think that by reading the book alone, without making a connection with a teacher, you will be able to gain realizations, or will be able to progress spiritually, then you are woefully mistaken, because you no longer have that connection. And as I said, because Dharma practice is all about sustaining the mind, sustaining the sem, and there should be that connection, the mind-mind connection, the mind of the Buddha and the mind of yourself. To make that connection, there should be a medium, and that medium is the teacher. So the teacher, so when I say the teacher, it's not about the individual teacher, right? Not about teacher A, teacher B, or teacher C. We're not talking about that teacher himself or herself individually, but as the the the, the, the teacher as a character plays a very important role for you to develop and to improve and to progress your spiritual practices. So therefore, it's very important to have a teacher. So it's very difficult to say these things, because so you find it you don't find many people saying this, especially in the West, right? Because when we speak about the teacher-student relation, then people tend to think about I'm trying to promote myself, self-promotion. But if I don't say that, then this is because Guru devotion is a very important part of Buddha's teaching. But if I say that, it seems like I'm promoting myself. So this is very important to when we talk about Guru devotion. Guru devotion is the key. Following the teacher is the key in any Dharma practices. But when we say follow the teacher is important, Guru devotion is very important. The most important thing in all the practices. We are not talking about devoting to the individual guru, not the guru as an individual entity, but the guru as an sort of a medium between the student and the original speaker, which is the Buddha, or the teaching which originated from, because the guru plays the role of a medium. So the guru is the conduit, right? Like the pipe. So if you want to drink a glass of, if you want to drink, when you drink water, when you go and have soft drinks, bubble tea, right? You will use a straw. So that straw is very important. If you don't have the straw, you will not be able to drink the juice inside. So therefore, the guru is that straw which helps you to induce the content of that cup into your body. So for that reason, guru devotion is very important. But as I said, when we talk about guru devotion, we're not talking about the guru as an individual, right? But as an characteristic representation of the Buddha, of the deity, of the quality, of the enlightened quality of such and such Buddhas. So therefore, basically, most people here, it says, most fools take his portrait and meditate on that, but do not honor him while he is present in person. They claim to meditate on the natural state, but do not know the teacher's mind. What an affliction to practice at odds with the practice. With no devotion, to meet the teacher in the intermediate state would be miraculous. So this is the last line. With no guru devotion, to meet the teacher in the intermediate state would be miraculous. So he's actually making what is the word for that? What's that? Anyway, I forgot the word. So basically, he's saying that if you do not have guru devotion, then, because we normally talk about when at the time of death, if we think of our gurus, then that will actually help ease our transition from this life to the next life, right? So if you do not have any guru devotion in this life, if you don't have any guru, any spiritual friend, then at the time of death, if you think of somebody and think of him as the guru and try to hope for an smoother transition, it will be very difficult, right? So that will be a miracle at best. So that is what he's saying. Oh yeah. So to summarize this chapter, it said, so come to page number 153. So there's a verse. Pedro Rinpoche made a very, very succinct, beautifully succinct verse. He says like this, it goes like this. In the beginning, skillfully examine the teacher. In the middle, skillfully follow him. In the end, skillfully emulate his realizations and actions. A disciple who does that is on the authentic path, right? So, so in the beginning, skillfully examine the teacher, meaning the would-be teacher, right? That beginning, before you take someone as your teacher, you should examine him. So I think I've spoken on that account many, many times. So before you take someone as your teacher, as your spiritual teacher, you should examine him. So how you examine him is by checking, in order to know whether the teacher is is valid, whether the teacher is infallible or not. Of course, you need to have a basic understanding of Buddha Dharma, right? And the basic understanding of Buddha Dharma, very simply, Buddha said, abstain from negative deeds and gather a whole, gather abstain from negative deeds, gather wealth of virtues, and subdue your mind. And this is the teaching of the Dharma, teaching of the Buddha. Basically, do away from evil deeds and do as much good as you can, and then most importantly, subdue your mind. Subdue means to eliminate all the negative aspect of your mind. So if you, and this is the teaching of the Buddha. So anyone who is teaching in accordance to that, then you can follow him or her as your teacher. So this is the basic rule, right? This is the basic rule. And on top of that, you may want to look for the teacher. There should be some good qualities in the teacher that you should be following. If you don't see any good qualities, just because the teacher is a good speaker doesn't mean that he's an authentic teacher. So you want to see whether he's kind, generous, compassionate, and all that. And basically, kindness or loving kindness is the most important thing here. So from one side, the teacher has to be very knowledgeable, or at least be able to impart the Dharma teaching towards you. So if the teacher knows nothing more than you, then he cannot be your teacher. So the teacher has to have the qualifications of the teacher has to be higher than yourself, right? So the qualification of the teacher has to be higher than yourself. This is the most important. This is the basis of a teacher. And but most importantly, the teacher has to be kind enough, has to be patient enough, has to be, basically he has to have a kind heart. So if the teacher is the qualifications of the teacher is higher than yourself, and the teacher is kind enough, then that person can be your teacher. So basically, when you examine the teacher, this is what you're looking for: qualifications and compassion. So if the teacher is qualified and if the teacher is compassionate, then that person can be your teacher. So in the beginning, you have to skillfully examine the teacher, right? In the middle, you have to skillfully follow him. Skillfully means very meticulously, very carefully. Here, skillful means because if you are skillful, you know how to do it the proper way, right? So therefore, in the middle, you have to skillfully follow the teacher. You have to follow every instruction that he gives. And in the end, skillfully emulate his realization and action. So because in the middle, you follow his words, his instructions, his guidances, as he said this and this and this. So all the obvious things that he points out, all the external manifestation that he expresses should be followed in the middle, right? But in the end, you no longer rely on the teacher to express or to give you guidances. You just have to emulate. You just have to whatever the teacher's actions are, whatever the realization of the teachers are, you just replicate them within yourself in the end. And that way, if someone does that, right, in the beginning, examine the teacher, in the middle, follow the teacher, and in the end, emulate his action and realizations, then that action means like behavioral patterns, like his every day-to-day conduct. Realization is the wisdom. So if you have the same wisdom as the teacher, if you have the same knowledge as the teacher, but if your actions are, not very good, then you are not following the teacher, right? So in the end, you should follow the teacher as in his understanding and his knowledge. So basically, it says that if you follow the teacher properly and you gain so much knowledge, but that knowledge makes you proud and egotistical, and then undermines everyone else beneath you, then you are not following the action. So the realization is the internal growth, and through the internal growth, you will be able to express externally the characters that you have built by following the teacher. So therefore, in the end, skillfully emulate his realizations internally and the actions externally. A disciple who does that is on the authentic path. So this is the best student, the best disciple. Okay, so conclude here and Q&A, please.
Okay, Rinpoche, we have 2 questions.
Please go ahead.
I'll read the first one. Rinpoche, how can we observe our teacher if we do not live with him or with her? Or maybe another way to ask is that what is the best way to observe a teacher if we don't live with him or her? Thank you, Rinpoche.
That's a good question. Very good question. So in Tibetan, we have a saying, okay, Lame Chinlap Gyalne Shu, which means the blessings of a guru should be taken from a distance. The blessings of a guru should be taken from a distance. Because if you stay with the guru, if you live with the guru for too long, then you will start to see lots of flaws, lots of mistakes, a lot of faults. And then you will start to doubt the teacher, and then you will not be able to develop your practices. And so this is actually said more in a satirical manner. It's actually a joke, right? Like so the blessings of a guru should be received from a distance. It's a joke, meaning it's sarcasm. It's a sarcasm hinting at the fact that as practitioners, we tend to see mistakes in everyone, and especially if we start to live with our teachers, we will start seeing the mistakes in them as well. It doesn't necessarily mean the teacher has all those mistakes, right? The teacher may have those mistakes, but it's not necessarily true that he has that mistake. But if we live with them for too long, then you start to see those mistakes, whether realistic or imaginary. So therefore, we used to sarcastically say that Lame Chinlap Gyalne Shu, the blessings of a guru should be received from a distance. So if you are living far away from the teacher, you only see him once a while, and you don't see that, any mistake or any of the bad stuff. So So jokes aside, so if you're not living with the teacher like on a 24/7 basis, or you're not living with the teacher for a long-term basis, what you can, whatever little you can see, whatever little you can witness, whatever little conduct of the teacher that you were able to witness, whether it's from whether it's his spoken mannerism, or verbal, physical, or any other forms of any other manifestation of his actions, you can, if you want to examine them, you can examine them. If you want to practice devotion towards that, you can do that. So it doesn't have to be like you don't have to be with the teacher all the time. To be able to stay with your teacher all the time and to develop faith in him is very, very difficult. Not too many people can do it. Even during Buddha's time, there's only one person, who is Ananda, who is able to kind of like, be with the Buddha at all times. And if you like to see, from his humble perspective, flows in the Buddha and still persevere to have faith in the Buddha. So during Buddha's time, all the other followers, they would be here and then they would not be here. They would be here and then not. So therefore, to be with the teacher at all times and to still devote faith in him, you need to be very courageous. You need to have you need to be very strong-willed. Your devotion to the Dharma in general and your practice itself should be very strong. If you don't have that, you cannot last that long with a teacher, because so this is my personal experience. Okay, so in my own experience, I used to see flows in a number of my teachers as a kid. When I was much younger, I see a lot of flows in a lot of my teachers. I see a lot of flows in, of course, in all the other people. So I start picking all those flows and I keep thinking about them, and I do that. And then as I matured in my practices, I have learned that all the flows that I see in everyone else, especially those in my teachers, were actually my own. Meaning whatever flows that I have hidden within myself, right? Because if you remember, I always keep saying a true Dharma practitioner should always be honest with himself. I say that a lot, and this is from my personal experience. Because in my earlier stages, I'm not very honest with myself as a practitioner. So as I become then I start to see the flows externally. The fault is always with my teacher, my friends, my surroundings, and never me. I'm always blame free. I'm always guilt free, and everyone else is wrong and I'm right. But then as I become more and more conscious of the reality, and then when I become more truthful with myself, right? Then I'm not perfect right now. I'm not perfect yet. I'm very, very far away from being perfect. But I found out that when you are being truthful to yourself, a lot of the flows that you see in others are actually your own flows. For example, I am very short-tempered, and I am also quite prideful. I'm very proud of myself as a person. I'm proud, and I'm also short-tempered. So when I see when I meet people, my years, just as prideful, and also many of my friends as being spiteful, as well as being short, angry, easy to get angry with. But then later I learned that it was actually my own fault, my own flaws. Okay, not my fault, my flaws. And so I was able to kind of project my flaws in the people who are closest to me, like my teacher, my family, and my friends. So the people who are most closest to me, I cannot see my flaws within, right? There's an example in the sutra about how The eyes cannot see itself. The eye cannot see itself. The eyes can see the eye through a mirror, but your eyes cannot see your eyes, right? So similarly, and also there's another saying that a sword, a sharp knife, cannot cut itself. A sharp knife, very sharp, can cut everything else, but not itself. So an eye cannot see itself. Similarly, we have this tendency to not see our own flaws. Okay, we can be very smart, very knowledgeable, and can know everything, but at the same time cannot know our own thoughts and the nature of our mind. So this flaw, I started to recognize as I mature in my practice. I started to recognize that a lot of the imperfections that I see in others, especially my teachers and people close to me, are actually my own flaws. And since I cannot see them within myself, I was actually projecting them to others and then seeing them through the reflection that they are providing. So just like your eyes are able to see your eyes through a mirror, I was able to see my flaws through my teacher, through my friends, through my family. But I thought that it was actually their faults. But it is not their flaws. It's actually my flaw projected on another person and reflecting back to me. That is how it is. So this is my observation. This is my personal observation. I'm not bragging about anything. I'm just saying simply the truth about how I experienced it all. So in my case, so from then onwards, I was able to see. So this is my experience. Okay, I'm not saying you should do this with me or anyone else, but this is what I do. So all the flaws that I start to see in everyone else or in my teachers or people around me, every time I see a flaw, I just try to be conscious and truthful to myself and dig deep inside myself whether I have that flaw within me or not. Just very, very truthful to myself. That's what I do. Okay. Did you say we have one more question?
Yes, one more question, Rinpoche. Rinpoche, if we keep holding on or relying on the teacher, even until at the time of death, can we be truly liberated? So let me read it again. Rinpoche, if we keep holding on or relying on the teacher, even until at the time of death, as you mentioned earlier, think about the teacher, it will help us transition to the next life, right? Can we truly be liberated if we keep holding on until then? Thank you, Rinpoche.
So if you have your teacher, your guru at your heart at all times, and especially at the time of death, this will very much help you to have a swift and smooth transition into the next life. Okay, very much so, because you have at the time of death, it's important. So there are two types of mind, mental aspect, three you can say: the positive, the negative, and the neutral state of mind. So at the time of death, because it's a very because it's at the end of your life, and it's a very anyway, so if you have your guru at your heart at the time of death, you will be able to have a positive mindset at the time of death, and that will actually help smoothen your transition to the next life. If you when you say liberation, if you mean as in liberate as in have a good rebirth, then yes, by thinking of your guru, you will have a good liberation. But if you normally, liberation is a term we use for to get out of samsara. So true liberation is only when you get out of samsara. So in that sense, just by keeping your guru in your mind itself, if you think of your guru and then you die, then you will not be liberated out of samsara instantaneously. That doesn't happen.
Rinpoche,
Can you repeat? At the time of death, he cannot truly liberated at the time of death.
You will not be liberated, not be true. So liberation, true liberation means out of samsara, right? Yes. So in that sense, just by thinking of your guru, you will not be liberated. But if you mean, because she said, maybe there's a misunderstanding, because when you have when you think of your guru, you have a good rebirth. You have a smooth transition from this life to the next life, and you have a good rebirth. So if you think that as a liberation, because you are liberated from the, even within samsara, there is the lower realm and the higher realm, right? So if you think if you think of your guru at the time of death, if you keep thinking about your guru at all times, and especially at time of death, then you will be liberated from the lower realms for sure. But that is not the true liberation from a spiritual point of view. True liberation means out of samsara. Yes. So it's a liberation. It's a small liberation. It's liberation from. Yes. If you think of Guru, you will be liberated from the lower realms.
Thank you, Rinpoche. I think that's all the questions for today.
That's to the dedication. Yeah. Wow.